Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here. And if you please use the chat just to say hello and to say where you come from, it would be absolutely brilliant. I'm going to leave a couple of minutes just for people to introduce themselves and to people to start coming into the room, and then we'll get started. Basically, that would be the idea. But super excited to give this talk. This is the second of the day. And lovely, oh, hello from Brussels. Wow, lovely. That for Grammar School for Girls, lovely. I used to teach in Maidstone. Okay, so that's very close then. Portsmouth, wow, that is lovely. Just say who you are. Okay, where you there, where you come from. It would be absolutely okay, lovely. Yes, hello for everybody who's joining in. We're just saying, basically, we're about to start. We're just gonna say hello, basically where you are and where you are there. I know it's Sunday evening, Sunday afternoon, so I really appreciate it. Just, that you are here listening to me. So hopefully you will be able to get a lot of ideas today, because everything is very, 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 very practical. So let's see how it goes there. Oh, I saw someone from Venezuela. That's amazing. Absolutely, because obviously you got the time difference as well. Okay, got primary language teacher. I think will be probably good for. It's for second. It's basically, I'm thinking of secondary, but the ideas definitely can be applied to secondary, to primary as well. And hello, as I said, people who are just coming in, I'm just saying hello. I am Esmeralda Salgado, and we are gonna start talking very, very, very quickly, and just say who you are, where you come from, and also it will be really good. So I always learn from you guys. So it's amazing to listen to, and to read your comments later on. So please, things I'm gonna show, please say if you like it, if you don't like it, if you do it differently. Use the chat as comments. But any questions and answers, it would be better if you use the question and answer tag. So use the chat more for comments, okay? And and the question and answer for little questions. They can answer at the end. I've got a very full-on presentation with lots of ideas. If everybody's happy, I'm gonna talk basically till 4 o'clock, and then I will do the sessions of questions and answers. I know it's extra time. Apparently there is not anyone in this room afterwards, so I can take a bit of extra time. So that's basically what I'm planning to do. But of course, 4 o'clock, I understand. Don't worry, you just have to leave. I won't take any offense whatsoever. So I think we're gonna get started. Hello to everybody. I'm Esmeralda Salgado. I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Lovely to hear people from all over the world, which I think is amazing. Okay, and I am ready to get started on on oral skills. Okay, developing oral skills in MFL. For those who don't know me, I am a head of MFL and digital lead in school, Kingsley School in Cambridgeshire. And everything I'm going to talk to you about is from my own research and especially my own experience in the classroom, things that I've tried and things that actually I know do work. You can follow me in Twitter. My Twitter name is Botones Salgado. And at the end, I will make the presentation available to everybody today, and also in my blog later on in the evening. So okay, let's get started. Very exciting, all that. Well, I'm going to talk about oral skills. And first of all, I just want to talk a little bit about why speaking and the oral really important. For me, I think the key thing here is the motivation. We look at motivation factors, and in individual and intrinsic motivation, one of the things that make people motivate is the content knowledge. Basically, the more they know about subject, the more motivated they are to learn more. Another one is relatedness, basically the social aspect, okay, of a subject where there is a good rapport in the classroom with the teacher, but also with the peers. Another that is that for me, probably the most, well, as important is the feeling of making progress. And for students, when you ask them about languages, for them, what makes them, they feel that they're good in a language when they can speak a language, obviously, and I can see all the reasons why. At that point, when they be able to speak, that basically at the same time gives them confidence and then gives them autonomy. And at the moment you become autonomous, also you become very motivated. So for all those reasons, for me, teaching and focusing my lessons on the oral aspect is key for motivation. And for me, the learning journey, the purpose must be the oral fluency. When I think as well of the language learning, this is how I visualize it. There is an element of modeling, there is an element of structured production, then creativity, and then the fluency. And then when the kids are very good at fluent, they can go backwards as well. They become creative, they can practice other new vocabulary, and they can model themselves new vocabulary in different topics. So it's all like a little big circle for me. And the purpose must be oral fluency. When I plan my oral activities, I think it's very important to think about the memory and the forgetting curve. Basically, we forget a lot, or just after 45 minutes, half an hour, we forget about pretty much 50–60% of all the things we've been learning. Our memory is divided in sensory memory, working memory, and long-term memory. Working memory is what we use in the lessons. And I do have here a little bit of my traffic lights concepts on what I base my oral activities. So all the activities I'm going to talk about have got these are the three pillars in which I base them all. The first pillar is the concept that the working memory, I already talked, is basically very fragile, and therefore working with chunks makes more effective use of the working memory. So when I plan my lessons, I try to work a little bit with sentence builders. I use the lexical grammar approach. Our goal is to help students create schemas, okay, with the ready-made chunks, target language, held in the long-term memory that can be quickly brought into use when comprehending and speaking a target language. This is being taken from the lovely book Memory, What Every MFL Teacher Needs to Know by Steve Smith and Gianfranco Conti, and I learned a lot about that, and it makes so much sense when you apply this research into the daily oral activities. The other element to look at is obviously, in order to make sure that we transfer information from the working memory into the long-term memory, what we need to do is task repetition. That basically means retrieval practice. So important. Without that, we cannot make those schematas in the brain. Task repetition strengthens learning. So that's another good factor when planning oral activities, how we can do that without being boring and with causing fatigue in the students. And it reduces cognitive overload. The more you practice and repeat an activity, the better you become at it. The better you become at it, less effort it is for your brain, less cognitive overload. And every time a task is repeated, it becomes more fluid. So for that, all the oral tasks should have a purpose. And I think that's key in lesson planning, okay? How we can find different ways of rehearsing so we don't create a fatigue in the student. And that comes to my third pillar, which is a little bit, which is basically the idea of repetition, little and often, less is more. The idea of interleaving is not just about retrieval practice, it's about how we can incorporate in these oral activities things that we learned, say, 3 months ago, 3 weeks ago, one week ago. And also the idea of vocab learning, that it sticks better when it's processed in more elaborate ways, basically when vocab is primed, and we just don't learn the vocab in isolation, but we learn it together with the grammar, and we make an effort on the allocation, which I mean by that is the lexical grammar approach, AP approach, like Gianfranco calls it, that actually does work really well. So based on all this, I'm going to be talking from modeling. That's the talk today, how to go from modeling, from the modeling beginning of the journey, all the way to fluency. everything is going to be full of a lot of practical ideas, taking into account, okay, the interleaving aspect, the retrieval aspect, retrieval practice aspect in all the activities that we create. So let's start there. So the first one is modeling. What can we do? We want the kids to be basically fluent in something. First, we need to start with modeling, creating the foundations for fluency. And this is important. I think sometimes we do oral activities as teachers and the kids are not ready. So they struggle, they find it difficult, especially teenagers, they feel a little bit silly speaking, and that becomes counterproductive. It's very important to have a very good base. And the base is going to be given by the modeling aspect. And for that, I think the use of sentence builders. I'm just going to show you very quickly an example of my sentence builders and how I basically I approach the sentence builders and the lexical grammar concept. This is an example of holidays, year 10 for high. So you got a lot of different things in their vocabulary, and the kids can manipulate it, start creating their own sentences. So the kids learn by heart, pretty much, me ayuda a relajarme, for example, siempre he querido hacerlo, rather than learning the perfect tense to start with, okay? So this is basically, that's one of the aspects I think that are quite important when you come for the oral aspect, to have something like the sentence builders. Activities that we can do to practice sentence builders and to make sure that those sentence builders become part of the long-term memory, dictations. Okay, so I'm gonna, this is some activities that I use with dictations. Of course, the easy way of dictations is with, you can be with the small words, you can have it with short sentences, you can have it with short paragraphs, long paragraphs, you can make it as you want to, depending on how the kids are working, the ability of the kids. Of another one, I think, with this an activity that works really well is a classical dictation, but with grammatical mistakes. So you have a dictation, the kids copy what you're saying, and then they need to spot where the mistakes are. So this is a nice way of introducing and doing the modeling, because they're hearing you and you're preparing the brain for the oral aspect, but at the same time you start planting the seed and start talking about grammar. Another one that looks quite well is that to do with dictation is when you read, you're reading like a sentence, then you stop, okay, all right, okay, and then the kids finish it. Okay, so basically it could sometimes things like me gusta montar acá, and then the kids need to write down in the mini whiteboard caballo. So basically it's a way of practicing all these little chunks from sentence builders, and the kids finish the chunk of the sentence. It's another activity that works really well. I'm doing this, or I would say normally I dedicate about a couple of two, sometimes up to 2 or 3 lessons just on modeling before I attempt to go to the next level. Another one that works beautifully well is delayed dictation. This is the one as well, one of the activities as well from the AP method with Gianfranco Conti, where the idea is that you give a sentence, the kids are not allowed to write it down, they need to wait for 5 seconds or 10 seconds, 15 seconds, depending on the ability of your students, and then they write the sentence. I think that's very, very, very powerful indeed. In all these activities in the modeling, you can make them very fast, you can make them very slow, so you can really adjust the level to the students. Another one that I really like is dictation of random sentences. We give a lot of different sentences to the students, and at the end they need to make up a paragraph later on, okay, and put the sentences together, so that they're doing basically modeling with listening and then modeling with reading. So important before they attempt themselves to speak. And of course, running dictation or running translation, the one where you put the pictures around the classroom, text around the classroom. The kids work in pairs or in groups of 3. One student stays on the desk, another one goes to the wall, tries to read a sentence, come back, and the person on the seat has to basically write the sentence and then translate it at the same time. That works really well. per dictation. This is a normal dictation, but what you're doing is this would work better, I think, here stage 4, when you are confident the kids got very good pronunciation, they do the dictation that you would do as a teacher, but they do it in pairs. I think that's very powerful as well. And they're very good and very strict with each other. You didn't pronounce that well. That's why I didn't understand you, that kind of thing. I don't know if you heard about this one, opinion dictation. That works really well with the statements and key stage 3 and key stage 4, actually. Normally what I do is I give statements like, me gusta jugar al fútbol. And then, no me gusta hacer patinaje. I can do that very quickly, very slowly. And the kids, what they do is that they copy the sentence, but they need to classify it according to themselves. If they agree, do they like it? They don't agree, or they don't have an opinion. The reason why I like this is because obviously they need to understand the meaning. If in the other dictations, they could be writing something, maybe they don't know what they're writing. Here they do. And then the second part, what I like it is because then later on in the journey, you can use the activity and they can talk with each other in key stage 4, so that they can compare the opinions. What do you like to do in your free time? ¿Qué te gusta hacer en tu tiempo libre? And then if they say that I like, what are the activities don't like, so it can give, it can be the nice foundation for an oral activity. Dictogloss, I'm going to talk later about it. So all these just with dictations that you can do in the modeling to make sure they got a very good foundation. Another activity I really like doing is back listening at this stage. It's very simple. You give them a test, okay, that you just give them a worksheet, and like this in English, and then you read the test in Spanish, but your version is slightly different from the version from the kids. Remember, all this is based on the chunks of the my sentence builders, and the idea with this is the first round they just highlight differences. The second time round, when I read it the second time, then they write, I always leave a little bit of a space between the lines, they write on the top the correct version, what I'm saying. Very powerful. I like it as well because then you can maximize and milk the activity, because then they can then translate it themselves into Spanish or French or German, because it's written in English later on. And then what they have as well is a wonderful model on how they can put the sentences together, the sentence builder, to create paragraphs. So it ticks a lot of the boxes just at the modeling stage. Of course, you got the activity. This is a Gianfranco classic, still in sentences. It works beautifully well. All the levels, I've seen it working very well with year 7s all the way to year 11s. This was done. This is an example. Actually, I think I used examples from different years. So the first level is just you show on the screen the sentences on the board, and you give 4 little pieces of paper to every student. And the students write or any number in each paper number from 1 to 7 in this case, or 1 to 10. And what they have to do, very simple, they go around the room and they just read the sentence to their partners. So you can see the modeling there, they practice, they're kind of trying to get all those sentence builders, all the vocabulary structures into the long-term memory. If the partners have put the same number as that they're reading, they're allowed to steal it. And the winner is the person that ends up with lots of little pieces of papers, because basically they stole a lot of sentences. That's very good. What I like doing with this is that on a level 2, I display the same sentences again. Okay, I'm using a different example, but it should have been the 7 sentences before, now with gaps. So they repeat the activity, but now they need to recall the word. And again, this is the importance of the priming and the importance of the allocation, something that goes in there, can go there, and then they repeat the activity. And then after 10-15 minutes, we do the level 3 thing, which is the same sentences. In fact, it can use the same papers, but now they need to translate the sentences from English, in this case, into Spanish, because that's what I teach. And in order to support them and to do that scaffolding, they do have the initials in there. That for me, that works really well with those kids, with low ability students. Okay, so that's another really good activity, that a lot of modeling in preparation for the journey. Another one that I love is Battleships and the listening, or could be reading Battleships. So basically, this is what I do. I create this grid for the students, and basically what I do, the sentences, if you look at it, are very, very similar. They are taken from my sentence builder, and what I do is that they write from 1 to 10 in the books. I say sentences randomly, and they need to write the coordinates. So if I say suelo conocer gente que es emocionante, they need to write A2. Okay, so I do it very slowly. I do it very quickly if I have to. So I can, this is much better than a listening that you would do, for example, from the book, which is more, they are designed more for testing. And the idea is learning the language through the listening. And what I like about this is that later on, I can reuse this activity with an oral battleships idea, and where the kids basically play battleships themselves, and they have an oral activity, and they're playing A and B. They put the little signs in there, and they need to find out where the ships from their partners are. So you go from one activity, you go listening. You can have an oral activity later on in the oral process, and then for prep, in order to help them memorize the vocabulary, you can ask them to translate these sentences. And then they got very good model as well of what you expect from them. Another classic as well in the modeling, read my mind. So good, so simple and so good. I just write in a piece of paper, the sentences are on the board, writing in a piece of paper, a number, okay, myself, and the kids have to guess which is the number that I've written down, basically which number I'm thinking of, okay, which sentence. And what they have to do is simple, just to read it, okay? Very powerful. Obviously, the longer you have 8, 9, 10 activities, 10 sentences, the longer it is. And we do it as a whole class, and it works really well then to do it in pairs. So one person writes a number, thinks of a sentence, and the other person has to find out which number the person is thinking of. So that's another class that works really well at this stage. Other one is rock climbing. So this is listening. This is another Gianfranco idea. And what happens, this is an example from my year 7s. And I want to show you, this is year 7s, did last year, how I'm including, if I would like to do horse riding, because they learn it as a chunk. So I'm already planting the seed for structures that they will need later on in the GCC. So what they do is that they go from here, when it is, so I read basically a sentence, and they need to choose one number for every little row. And at the end, it creates a whole sentence, basically. I like it because later on, they can do a writing activity. So for example, they write 6 sentences, and this is your code, 1, 10, 11, 17, 23. Create your own combinations. You can work with a partner, and you create the combinations, and you need to guess which are the combinations from your partner. So very powerful indeed. You also have in here, in the tech, if you want to use technology, screencasting for modeling. You can record your own videos. You can do these things, some of these activities in videos, so the kids can work out and learn at home. And of course, the sentence builders, I don't know, this is quite new, is I love these websites, sentence builders, that will allow you in all, especially at the modeling stage and at the practice stage, will allow you or your students to learn the different chunks. Okay, it's fantastic. It's not free, but it's very, very economical. You already got activities based on some sentence builders, or what I like about it, you can create your own ones, your own activities based on your own sentence builders. So that's basically what you do with the things I do with the modeling. At this stage, the kids are becoming better and better with the vocabulary and remembering the structures. Then we move to the structured practice stage. What I do here, here's when we start doing the scaffolding support. Especially you do have mixed ability classes, but to be honest, any class is mixed ability, in my opinion. Here's when you start doing interleaving, so you can include vocabulary and things from previous lessons, from previous topics. This is great from retrieval. If you can see, you can hear here out formation. Normally we give information to the kids. What about stopping and expecting the kids to give us information? And what this stage of learning is about. How we do that? Well, at this point, we can do a lot of board games. And you can do the little board games, snakes and ladders. You can do Connect 4. You can do all the board games, traditional ones. You can do it in a board game situation, and normally, basically, every time a child falls into a particular square, they have to do some. They have to translate a little sentence, for example. And now is when they start doing the oral thing. In the previous thing, it was a lot of listening, a little bit oral, but very little. Now we are starting. Now we require the kids to be able to speak. Or you can use, which is what I do. I use here a little bit of technology. I use Genially. You're going to get this presentation, and here there is a video tutorial video showing you how to use Genially. But this is the kind of things that you can do with Genially. Although you could do this with a Connect 4 with a board, okay? But I just wanted to show you. So this is my structure practice thing. I basically I share this board with the kids. The kids open this board on their computer or in their phones. They need one per every 2 students. And now I expect them to translate orally first these little sentences. Remember they've done the modeling aspect, so they're becoming better and better with them. If they get it right, they have always the sentence builders with them to check. My students got a booklet with all the sentence builders. If they are right, parent checks, and then they're allowed to pick up basically a number. And the idea is they just go there and they just create basically Connect 4. Okay, Genially already has got all these lovely templates for you. So the only thing you need to enter is just the wheel of names in there. So really, really good. Another example is snakes and ladders. This could be in a board, traditional board, but just is the idea. Or you can, I like technology, so I like doing it like in technology like that. So you do have a dice, kids work in pairs, they could have in groups of 4. Every time they come here, they need to do something. In this case, it's a year 9, they have to translate these little sentences, structured practice. Sometimes I start, if the class is really good, I start asking them questions, and I want you to answer that question with that particular sentence there, okay? But if they're not ready, the translation, like this one, it is worth using the trend because it is more ecological. Remember, merece la pena, plus infinitive. And they are doing all this orderly. Okay, so there are a lot of different games. Then I'm going to be moving, otherwise you're not going to finish in this. So that's basically the idea, board games. Another really good one that works with me, Jenga game. So basically this is, I do have a lot of sets of Jengas in my classroom. The kids place it, they place obviously the tower of the Jenga. I do buy the Jengas, the ones that have got numbers in it. And basically what they do is that very simple. Either they create sentences, okay, from the sentence builder, okay, from memory, in order to be able to get rid of one of the little pieces, or I can give them a list of sentences in English that they have to translate. And okay, as simple as that. So it's basically doing the practice, that retrieval thing, over and over again, but now with a little bit of an element game, and they love it. And of course, they start getting every time practice over and over again until the tower falls. So that's really good. Another good one that I use a lot, translating pyramids. This is another one from Gianfranco idea. And basically, a student gets this, okay. This is basically what they will get. One student gets this worksheet, the other student gets the other one, and they fold it. Okay, so they fold it into. What happens is that A has to read the sentence. I go on holidays to Spain, of course, reading, translate it into Spanish. B has got the answer. Voy de vacaciones. So everybody's got each other's answer. So they can be checking when they're saying if it's correct. If it's correct, the person is allowed to move to the second part. If it's, and then the second part is the same as the first, but now the sentence becomes bigger. Then the sentence becomes bigger. And then at the end, you have a very long paragraph. However, if you make a mistake, you need to start again the pyramid, which is very frustrating, but is excellent as well because they practice it over and over again. And they do it in turns, basically. So it's 10A, then it's B, then it's A, then it's B, and you keep moving with the pyramid. That is another one that in my opinion, works really well at this stage. The other one that works really well is Dictogloss. I was mentioning before about dictation. I think this is a fantastic activity because it's listening, reading, and writing all in one. Basically, you get two texts in Spanish, okay, or in French, or in German. Student A reads text A in silence and writes a summary in English. Student B reads his own text B, and writes a summary in English too. Then the student A, using their notes in English, has to translate the test into Spanish or try to reproduce it, while the partner B takes notes in Spanish. It's like a dictation. And then B does the same, using their English notes, basically reconstructs the test to their partner. At the end, both the students compare the transcription with the written with the original text. So I love this one because there is obviously reading. You're giving the model of a text already, okay? Then they need to memorize, they need to, not memorize, but they need to recall all the time this idea of out formation instead of information, okay? With you know, from English with the little chunks, and then they just talk to, and then at the same time they write it, and then they can translate it as well back into Spanish. I think that's a very powerful, one of my favorite activities. Of course, any information gap activity that you do is brilliant at this stage because it gives this idea of purpose. Okay, so you need to repeat this idea, these structures over and over again. So they do have like a purpose for it, more likely they're going to be engaged and motivated. Okay, so this is, for example, one thing there. One of the activities, this is from year 8. ¿Qué hay en tu casa? This is an information gap activity. As A has to answer according to these little prompts. Okay, in my house there is a sitting room. I like it because it's modern and comfortable. There is a kitchen, and we've got masculine nouns. Masculine nouns are blue, feminine nouns are feminine, and then B is the same, but this is a little different. So it could be, honestly, anything that you use as an information gap activity will do, and normally works really well. This is another example where you get A gets this, B has got that, so everybody's got, A has got the gaps that B needs, and they just have to ask, ¿qué pasa en el número 1? Okay, A, and B has got the answer for number 1, and just have to translate into Spanish. I used to smoke, but now I know it is bad for my health and your breath smells. So A listens and just write it down. So I think that is a lovely little anything with information gaps. And of course, battleships. Basically, the battleships that we did before, and I was talking to you that they can do it orally. You can recycle the activity and do it in here as well. If you like technology, like I do, you do have some activities here using technology. And you do have some tutorials on how you use it in the classroom. One of them is the Flippity Randomizer. You can do this as well with the sentence builder side. Basically, at this stage, basically, is they come up with something. I have to clean the tables, okay, so they translate it, and there is an element now, I try to use this once I can see the kids are better. There is an element now of where the kids have to say something spontaneous. Yo diría que, and then have to finish the sentence, okay? Normally, again, I give this activity to the kids because this comes with an URL, and they just use either their phones or their in their computer. They use it and they translate them in pairs, basically. Right, so that's a really good one in there that you can use. And the other one is Wheel of Names. I think Wheel of Names is brilliant, which is basically same idea. Okay, this is oral practice, so we do this as a whole class. Okay, they can do it in pairs as well. This is the same as I used in Genially, so that's how I can do it for the cycle. How many people need help? How can you translate that? And they do it orally, and it's about as well if cold calling, not to expect all the times to ask the kids who can put the hands up, because normally it's the same ones bring the hands up all the time. So this is basically the structure production. Then we move on to creativity. The kids now, they know this quite well, and then we're going to start doing more elaborate or creative oral activities. Okay, this is my tip. basically. Before attempting these activities, practice the answers with mini whiteboards. Now we are moving from translating sentences to asking questions, and I want the kids to come up with something. I'm not giving them model answers in Spanish or in English anymore. I expect them to come up with something. So that's why I say before doing that, doing a session with mini whiteboards with a lot of, with wheel of names, something like that. Okay, so the kids can, they get into the habit, they can see models, and then they speak it, they come up with something. What is very good as well, another tip, is to stop the lessons in order to avoid this cognitive overload. Stop the lessons every so often to do a little bit of reflection and ask students to recall structures, like in a quick fire and translation task. So you're all the time practicing over and doing the retrieval practice. I think that's another really good thing, okay, in order for the kids to feel confident. And this is some of my favorite activities. First one is cops and robbers. This is an idea taken from Kate Jones. And this is basically how it works. It's policías y ladrones. I give out a set of oral questions for the students, okay? So like this one, this is just from topics. Interleaving here would be fantastic. Students need to go around asking each other these questions. Before they start, they write in bullet points what in the policías, which is their area, what they would say for each question. So you've got that kind of reflection, rather than, so they're more likely to speak than if you just go there and, and speak. And then when they go around, they listen to their partners, and then they write in the thieves section, the ladrones, okay, those expressions, okay, or structures or content that they had from their partners that actually was really, really good. And I think this works really well because they they learn from each other. So the idea here is you go from, this is what I would say, now I'm hearing to my partner, and if I like some of the things that you said, that's amazing, I'm gonna take a note. Now what I ask them is to add those notes into their own area in the books, so they reuse them. Basically, just learning from each other. I think that's a lovely activity. The other one is 4 boxes. So I put 4 boxes on the board, just like that, and then I just ask a question, and I nominate a student. The student will answer the question in best of their ability, and I write their name. Then I ask another person, and they write the name. I ask another person, and I write the name. I always ask the same question. Another person, and I write the name. And then the next time I ask the question, it will be a volunteer. The person, okay, who puts their hands up first, the person who answers the question, they're allowed to kick one of the names from the boxes out and put their names in. I measure this, so I use a timer and I play for about 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, the 4 names remaining in here are the winners, basically, and they will get a little something from me, like a little script. So here is the idea. In order to do this, you need to make sure that there is a very good rapport in the class, because obviously you don't want children to kick one of the students out for the wrong reasons. And it works really, really well, and adds that element of game into the oral activity. Another one I really like as well is walkabout bingo. Okay, so basically, again, I give the students all these set of questions. Okay, if you notice there are different topics, I always do that. So that's the interleaving process. This is an example for year 10 and year 11. And what they have to do, this is another idea taken from Kate Jones from her book Retrieval Practice. And what they do is that they have to go around asking the question, and they can write in the space something that they really like about the answers from their partners, and then they write the name of the student, the person they asked the question to. The person who basically asks, okay, all the questions with a different student in each box is the winner, and basically says bingo. Okay, so this is an oral bingo idea. Okay, so they go around asking, and they cannot ask the same student more than one question. because otherwise you're going to stay with the same stack with one partner and ask them all the questions. That's why you need a name in each box. So you need to ask, in this case, 12 different people. So very good with this one. And then the students can take notes in English or write hard input expressions used by their peers. So that's a really good one. Another one that I really like as well, this is taken from Kate Jones as well, that she uses in history, but I thought it could be adapted to MFL quite nicely, is relay races. So for this one, the kids play in groups of 3. They focus on a question at a time. Normally, I display the question on the board, okay? Important to interleave past topic questions, and then student 1 answers the question on the board. For example, the question could be an open question, háblame de tu colegio. A student B needs to actively listen to student A, okay? Because when it's their turn, needs to answer the question as well, but cannot repeat any information given by student 1. So they're allowed to take notes of what the student 1 is saying. Then student 3 does the same thing, but it's even more difficult now because they cannot repeat any information from student 1 or student 2. So obviously student 3 always got a more difficult job. And that's why after they become 1, 2, and 3, they take turns, basically. So it's not always one person in the third one. I do this with time a little bit, okay? So I tell them you need to speak for about 30 seconds or 40 seconds, okay? So they don't speak for 5 minutes. Normally, no, it's not the case, but they don't feel a little bit, what's the word? Threatened by it. So that's really good. The other one I really like using technology is Flippity. But instead of using the randomizer, I use this one. This works brilliantly for oral. And the idea here is that we do this as a whole class first. And I do this with the session, that was my tip, with whiteboards first. I ask them a question, or they need to say a sentence, but they need to include this verb. They can conjugate it if they want to, but that's what they need to do. Then another one, uso. Then another one, matar el rato. So on the topic that we are studying, tell me a sentence with that. Tell me a sentence with this one. Tell me a sentence with that one, as a whole class. Then I share the link with them, and then they do this activity themselves in pairs, basically. Normally playing piedra, papel, tijera. Piedra, papel, tijera. Stone, paper, and scissors, basically. And that's another one that works really well for oral, getting them into become more fluent. Of course, at this stage, Flipgrid works fantastically well. Okay, Flipgrid, if it is basically, they can do little presentations. But what about using Flippity with wheel of names, for example, or Flipgrid with Flippity? Sorry, Flipgrid, not Flippity. So how do you do this? I share the wheel of names activity or the Flippity activity with the students. A student using Flipgrid, the students open the tab, then they open Flipgrid, and what they can do in Flipgrid now, I think is amazing, they can do a screencasting. So they can record themselves playing themselves the board, the wheel of names, and translating the sentences, or the game that we did before, Flippity. At home they can do it again, and they have to create a sentence with it. And I think that's very, very powerful. And then everything gets recorded in Flipgrid, so I can then go and listen to it, and I can give feedback. So I think it's and they don't need to have their face recorded, because Flipgrid will record the screen rather than their face. And I think that is very good. And of course, use Padlet, not anything with oral or even written at this stage, because the written aspect will support the oral. Okay, what can you think? Talk about my holidays. Okay, what can you think about it? Can you write it in Padlet so everybody shares? You've got a little video here demonstrating as well how I do the Flippity activity for you to watch in your own lesson. And then we go to the latest element, which is the fluency. And please, when you come to fluency, I think you need to be very careful. What does it mean to be fluent? Be fluent in my world, and especially when we're talking key stage 3 and key stage 4, is not about being native and being able to speak spontaneously on any topic. Okay, it's that you can be fluent within a topic, And I think that's very important to make the distinction with the students. Like, actually, you can talk about holidays really well. Okay, that's really good. And the way I say to the kids is that when you talk about holidays, then you talk about school, then you start mixing up the vocabulary from each other. You start manipulating. You start getting the grammar into it. Then you have a lot of fluencies in a lot of different aspects, and then you become bilingual. Fluency doesn't mean to be bilingual, and I think that's important. What we can achieve with these kids, considering that we see them 2 or 3 times a week, to be somehow maximizing. And at this point, the element, basically all the activities pretty much that we used before, we can use them here in Fluency. The difference is now to use time. And that's why I go 3, 2, 1. For example, you can do a speed dating, where you got the kids and then you got all these other questions that we did before in the bingo. For example, in the token bingo, they're going to be now in a speed dating, but now you want every time they're talking to a partner, I want you to speak 3 minutes. Next time you move, you are going to speak 2 minutes. The next time you move, I want to stay 1 minute. So you use all the different activities, but now you got time limit. You don't have all the time in the world. You got either 3, 2, 1 minute, and repeating it again during a lesson. So they start from 3 to 2 to 1 to 30 seconds. At this stage, I took out piedra, papel, tijera, any game, the wheel of names with piedra, papel, tijera, playing together. That works really well, especially you add the element of 3 to 1. This is an idea from Rachel Horst, which I thought it was fantastic, which is piedra, papel, tijera, evolution. The idea is that playing each other, they're answering questions to each other. Every time they win one of the rounds from piedra, papel, tijera, they pass from being an egg to be a little chick, from a chick, a bird, from the bird, an elephant, the elephant, Superman. So the person who wins basically 4 times in a row, okay, within is basically the winner. So this what allows me, and every time you do, I expect them to be quicker and quicker and quicker. It's a very nice little element game to repeat over and over again. And because they want to become Superman, they don't mind repeating the questions over and over again. They just want to keep winning, which is quite nice. Any of the board games that we did before, but instead of with little translation, now with open-ended responses and time. Okay, so everything will work. Drama activities. You do have a link here to this lovely website, Creative Multilingualism, and it has got a lot of different games like BCB, 7, things that you can do in the classroom. The kids, especially this works particularly well in the summer term, and I take the kids outside to the to basically outdoors, okay, to the garden and to the outdoors in the school basically. And would I like to, or I'm not going to go through them, but there's a lot of different activities that they're more spontaneous. They have to think on the way, and you do have demonstrations. These activities are supposed to be for they are drama activities that have been adapted to languages, and I think they are absolutely brilliant. And the flippity that we saw before, remember that one with the flippity that we did? And I said, for example, tell me a word in pairs. You can play this with the piedra, papel, tijera, and if you click on here, you got elements. So this is the one to the element that you want in the fluency. Give me the sentence, but I don't want you to take 5 minutes for me to go and have a coffee. I want you to tell me the sentence, and your partner is going to measure that you need to tell me the sentence within 20 seconds or 15 seconds. It means your time is over now. Okay, and now it's my turn. So they keep on repeating it over and again until they can do it within the time. And then I got quizzes for speaking. What this is another piece of technology. Before doing some of these activities, this is what I do. Okay, so this is done with quizzes.
¿Qué aplicaciones usas en Internet?
Before just going and doing the activities one over again, they do this little quiz. I share the quiz with them. A quiz allows me to record my voice. I do have the oral questions in here. They listen, they practice in writing, and then they attempt the orals. I noticed just by doing that little thing, that pre-preparation, or doing this with mini whiteboards, the kids can speak better and they become more fluent. So it's about preparing them and giving them the confidence to do really well. And you can do that as well with Mentimeter. Okay, Mentimeter, basically, you ask a question and you tell them, okay, can you do in practice first? But you can do with mini whiteboards. Háblame de tu colegio. The right, what would you say? Write it down. What would you say? And then you do the oral activities. And I think that's it. I mean, wow, that was really try to squeeze a lot. This is my presentation that you can have in with a QR code. I'm going to share it later on in my blog. In here, you do have a link directly to my blog. I'm going to answer any questions and answers because there are not anyone in this room at the moment. Okay, but hopefully you get the idea that when you prepare the oral, the fluency has to be prepared and has to be designed and cannot just happen just by magic. There is a lot of well thought out activities leading from modeling and giving the students confidence with a lot of retrieval practice, okay, and interleaving and repetition all the way to fluency. And in the fluency, basically what we want is the kids can do it quickly, spontaneously. And that is when you need to add the time element. So you start very slowly, 2 or 3 lessons with modeling, then a few lessons with practice. And it's a very slow process, but it does work. And the kids start becoming fluent with that. And then they start manipulating. And of course, this is not the session of grammar, would have been embedded in there because I do teach grammar, even though I use sentence builders. And I'm going to stop sharing now. And I'm more, it's a pity because I cannot see you, cannot talk to, I cannot hear your lovely voices, but I'm going to look at the questions and answers, see what it is here. Too much animations, which tool are you using? Sorry about the animations, that's me. This is how I teach. I use Genially. So they think, basically all these ideas, basically, yes, the Genially that I use with the wheel of names, that is what I'm using for my presentation. Okay, so that is yeah, that is one. How are you able to have a pop-up screen overlaying your presentation? That's great. Okay, this is Genially. You had a screenshot in the iPhone image of the video game you'll play. Okay, basically this is Genially. So there is in my presentation there is a tutorial on how to do yes, on how to use Genially, and then you can use in the Genially is a fantastic tool. Again, how you use the path listening. Yes, path listening basically is a test which is I give to the students in English, then I translate it into Spanish, but with differences. So what they have to do, first thing is they listen to it, look at they listen to me, they read their English, and then they highlight the differences. And then the second time they listen to it again, and then what they do is that they write the actual differences. And I don't know if there is another question. Oh yes, that is the one. So this was only 3 questions, which is you know, brilliant. And yes, okay, so any feedback, if you leave any feedback in the chat, that would be absolutely fantastic. Hopefully you've written things in your chat as well about how do you use some of these things? You don't you use them? How do you use them? Because I learn from you. Try to get ideas from everybody. But remember, it's about being research informed and doing things not for the sake of doing them. Things don't happen by magic. Things happen because you plan them, and it's a very, very slow process, but you will get in there. And I think that's it. So it's been a pleasure to talk to all of you. I will share this on my blog, so it will be on Twitter. Okay. Excuse me about the image at the back. Just my 5-year-old putting pictures apparently of me all around the house. And please leave any comments, anything like that, because I can always, it's very difficult to talk 45 minutes. This could have been a whole day of CPD, just squeezed into 45 minutes or an hour. It's been a pleasure, and I will see you again. Bye-bye now. Okay, I'm gonna leave now.